I think we're going to get started. So you are here to hear more about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and some of the financial education resources that we offer and ways that you can use them and to implement them into your own financial literacy and capability or financial wellness programs on campus. Well, first, I'd like to start off with who has even heard of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau? Ooh, much better than the last session. Wonderful. Okay, for those of you who don't know us, well, first of all, let me do the disclaimer. I am a government employee, and everything I say is my own personal view and not a view of the government. Okay, great. Okay, so I am from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and we were an agency that was created right after the financial crisis. We were given the authority to provide consumer education to borrowers about their mortgages, about credit cards, payday loans, and even student loans. We also regulate banks and non-financial institutions that offer financial products and services. We are from a division within the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that focuses specifically on educating and engaging consumers about financial products and services. Our agency focuses on a few special populations. The first are service members, veterans, and their families, and the benefits that they may receive due to their service. We also serve older Americans and those who help older Americans and their caregivers. Kate, who's been passing out some feedback forms, and I are from the office that focuses specifically on students and young consumers. So we provide consumer education and resources to help student loan borrowers and prospective student loan borrowers before they take out student loan debt, to manage their money while they're in school, and then to successfully repay their student loan debt. So we're going to get into some of the resources that we offer, but I wanted to start off with the why. Why do we provide consumer education specifically for this population? You all in this room deal with this population every day, so this is not going to be news to you, but it's always a great reminder. So we know from the National Financial Capability Study that less than half of Americans are saving for college. We also know that very few people actually receive scholarships of a sizable amount. So this means that students will be most likely taking on a student loan to finance their college education. We also know that students and young consumers struggle with their financial obligations. We know that 1 out of 3 young adults receive financial assistance from a family member. And we know that they only have very few or to no savings at all. And this kind of stress and financial situation can actually lead to student loan borrowers to feel stressed or concerned about their student loan payment. I'm sure that you see this in your work every day, and we've actually heard that 48% of borrowers are concerned that they won't be able to repay their loans. We also know that given the chance to do it over again, 53% of student loan borrowers said they would do something differently. We also know that student loan borrowers don't really understand their financial obligations about their student loans. 38% of them didn't know how to calculate their student loan payment or didn't know how much they would have to repay when they were done with college. Some borrowers don't even know the difference between their private and federal student loans. So this is why we are here. We are here to provide financial education to consumers to help them not default on their student loan debt, for them to take out the right amount of student loans and to be able to successfully repay their student loans. We also know that student loan debt can have a domino effect on the rest of their lives. It may stop them from buying a house or forming a family or start contributing to their 401k or retirement savings. It could even impact their career choice. So this is why we want to get students before they take out student loan debt or just in time for them to repay their student loans, so we can actually help them successfully manage their student loans. Okay, so now I'm going to go through a few of our resources that we offer. These are all free on our website. We are a federal government agency, so you are welcome to take the content, copy it and paste it, and put it on your website. We do not own the content. There is no copyright on it. You are also welcome to link to our materials as much as you need. But we offer a website called Ask CFPB. It is a website that offers over 1,200 commonly asked financial questions about different financial products, anywhere from mortgages to credit cards, but we've highlighted the one that's most relevant to you all, student loans. It could be simple questions like, what is a federal direct loan, to more complicated questions like, when do I have to start repaying my loan, or what is an income-driven repayment plan? So we offer this resource on our website. It's at consumerfinance.gov/askcfpb. We also offer a website for students who just don't know where to begin. They don't even know the questions that they want to ask. So we've created a website that leads them through the most important topics, which we feel the most important topics to introduce them into student loans. It could be topics such as getting a loan, or how do I pay for college, or how do I begin to repay my student loans. So this is a website that you can send students to, which just has an A to Z information about preparing for for college and repaying student debt. And the website is here on the bottom of this slide. Okay. We also offer a website that's specifically targeted towards you all. We call you all practitioners, right? You're intermediaries. You deal with students every day. So we offer a bunch of resources such as Paying for College, which will walk students through, how do they take out a loan? How do they repay their student debt? How can they manage their money while they're in college? We also offer a series of different action guides that are available on this website. And again, they're available to you for free. We also do what we call just-in-time consumer education. So we do a series of blogs or consumer advisories throughout the year. If you're interested in learning more about the stuff that we offer throughout the year, you can sign up for our email address. We don't bombard you with 1,000 emails every month, just a couple, and it really just tells you maybe some of the things that your students should be thinking about during that month. Back to school time, in November when they receive their first student loan payment. These are resources that you can forward to your own student loan population, your student body population, or it could be things that you can post on your website. Last but not least, we offer print publications. So we offer in bulk ordering of any of our print publications for free. So we will print them and we will ship them to you for free. So if you want 1,000 publications on how to save and pay for college, we will print them and ship them to you. This is your federal tax dollars at work, so you might as well take advantage of it, right? So if this is a cost that colleges and universities don't have to take on themselves, if you don't work for a college and university, this is also open to you all. It's open to the public. So anyone can order and download publications or order them in bulk. We offer a series of different publications. If you come visit us in the resource room, we will be there for the rest of the day, but we actually have some samples that you can see, and which you can, the website to order those is down here. Okay, so I guess I should have mentioned that we can take questions throughout the presentation. So if you would have any questions now, you can go to the mic, but we may just move on to Kate's part of the presentation. So Kate is going to demo a new resource that we have for you all about financial aid offer letters and how financial aid offers can come to life through a dynamic disclosure tool. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, or close to good afternoon. Let me see if I can navigate over here. So like Kristen said, the tool I'm going to show you is something that students can use once they have a financial aid offer. It wouldn't replace a financial aid offer. We see it as a supplement. We basically tried to take a really good guidance counselor and put them into a website. Obviously, we can't exactly do that, but we try to get as close as we can. There's 4 main things that this tool helps a student do. Once they have their financial aid offer, the tool helps them calculate what is their funding gap. And you'll see that it's fully interactive, so if they have additional costs that they know they need to budget for, they can add in those line items. Once they know their funding gap, we can help them figure out a way to close that gap. How are they going to finance that? That's probably going to be with debt. So this tool will also project their total debt by the end of their program. And then once we have a projected total debt, we can go through the affordability and worthwhileness of that debt. So let me get started here. And as I'm going, if there's anything you notice, if you have a question, you're welcome to go to the mic. And Kristen will nudge me if I'm not noticing that you're there. I also handed out some feedback forms. I did run out, but if you have things that you notice as you go, you want to jot down, we can take that from you afterwards as well. Any suggestions you might have. So the tool would start by the student putting in the college that they're looking for. We're looking at an older version that uses Texas Tech, but that's not, really who it's about. These are just made up numbers. They put in their degree type. You can see here, this also works for associate degrees, graduate degrees, certificate programs, different length programs, their tuition rate, where they plan to live. Once we know that, we can talk about costs. They have an option about whether their offer includes the costs or not. If it doesn't, they can click no, and we will pre-populate with the latest available data from Ed. The tool runs mostly on data from College Scorecard, and we use some Bureau of Labor Statistics data as well. So you can see from this cost page, this is what I was talking about earlier, they have the option to add costs. So for instance, if they have an additional cost in their letter they need to add, they can do that there. Down here in the indirect costs, if they know they have specific expenses that they're going to need to cover, they can adapt the tool to give them a realistic sense of what it's really going to cost them to go to school. On the next page, they can enter the grant and scholarships they've been offered. You notice in the upper right-hand corner, it's tracking the amount of costs that are not yet covered. And as they go through the tool in each part, we started off before we ever built the tool by talking to many students, parents, and college access advisors. And they give us a list of things that they wish they had known, that they were confused by, that they get questions about all the time. And so throughout the tool, we've tried to embed that information based on what we were told students need to know. So for instance, on the work study page, we heard from financial aid officers that lots of students get confused about work study. They think that money is guaranteed to them. They think a job is already lined up for them. So we try to make it clear here that that's actually not the case. Then they can put in their federal loans. You see there's these different options here to get more information about the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized. Institutional loans, we think this page is going to be increasingly important as schools are looking for ways to replace the Perkins program. And then other resources. So this is where they can kind of put down the financial aid offer and bring in a holistic picture of the resources available to them. If they have personal savings, if they have a family contribution, if they have an off-campus job they can account for, or if they have entitlement income. And throughout the tool, we give them these little things like, hey, this is really long and tedious. You're doing a great job. Keep going. Oh. Okay, so then we give them a one-page explainer on how student loans work. You guys probably wouldn't have been surprised to hear the questions that we heard, but I was surprised at how fundamental the questions were. I don't know what interest is. I don't know how that works. And so we try to kind of make that clear here in a very applicable way. And throughout the tool, we're nudging them, obviously, to minimize their costs. So we talk about, the ways that you can reduce the cost of your loans, borrowing less, find a lower interest rate, make bigger monthly payments. This graph always produces little gasps from the high schoolers who look at it. And then we talk about the risks and trade-offs of investing this debt. Okay, so once we've given them that little breeze through that information, this is kind of the heart of the tool. This is where they can make a plan to bridge their funding gap. So we've calculated that gap for them. And then throughout this tool, they can adjust. Let's see if it's doing what it's supposed to do. They can adjust different parts of it, and we kind of guide them through the cheapest to most expensive options for reducing their gap. So we start off with reducing cost, then we look at, can you get more scholarship money? Can you magically find more cash? Tuition payment plan might be a good option. Maybe you can budget it, even if you don't have the money up front. If you can increase your federal loans, perhaps, although we know that's not likely. And then at the very bottom, they can look at adding on private and Parent Plus loans. Okay, now that we've come up with a plan and that plan has a total debt figure attached to it, we can do some multiplication and project a total figure for the end of their program. And we follow the guideline that their total debt should be less than or equal to their first year salary. This was designed before we had the release of the first year salary data and the program specific data, so this is going to look a little different. And then they can also look again at the total cost of borrowing. This page is about what happens if you end up borrowing a little bit more or a little bit less. What is it going to cost you extra or save you in terms of interest? And here's like another nudge. We want them to be thinking about paying their accrued interest as they go to save on capitalization costs. After those big picture gut checks, we want to look at the month-to-month affordability of their tool, of their loan rather. And so this is where we can estimate a monthly loan payment. We use the standard 10-year plan here because we want students to plan for the most expensive possibility. We did originally look at letting them toggle between different repayment plans, but it got really complicated and it sort of distracted from the purpose of this tool. This is for someone who's going into school, and so getting really far into the fields of repayment got distracting. We have an estimated salary, and then we actually bring in budgetary data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it's regional. So they can look at different parts of the country and play with this. All of this is interactive. I think for adult students especially, this page would be interesting because they have they're already paying their month-to-month expenses and can bring in their real figures here and make sense of whether they can afford to take on this debt. Oh, another little good job. Then we go into some basic statistics about the school. Again, these are not real Texas Tech numbers, but we look at the graduation rate. For two-year schools, we would also bring in the transfer to graduation rate as well as the repayment rate. And then you'll notice the students can kind of choose their own cohort comparison here. So if they're interested in only staying in Texas, they can compare it to other Texas schools. If they know they want to go to a public school, they can get a sense of how it competes against other public schools, et cetera. So we finally finished putting in numbers, learning things. Now we're getting into closing out of the tool. They can take away a summary of the plan that they've put together that has all of the numbers. I'm really struggling with this mouse, sorry guys. They can also save it as a link. Now it says save it as a link, but I want to make it clear that we're not holding onto their data at all. We have a URL that's building out and out and out. So they'll have a unique URL, but we're not actually they're not creating an account. We're not holding onto their data anywhere. So we don't want any of that, right? We don't want any of that privacy risk, so that should not be an issue. Once they've looked over their plan again, they can decide if they feel good about it or not. And if they do feel good about it, we can give them a checklist of things to do next, all the nitty gritty. Make sure you understand the terms of conditions of your grants and scholarships, accept your loans, make a budget. We're also creating a student-specific cash flow budget worksheet. One of the things we heard from students is that they really struggled with matching up the timing of their expenses and when they actually get the funding. So again, with the work study, if you see work study on there and you think that money is going to be available to you up front, that's actually not the case. We don't want them to be budgeting that way. So we think the cash flow budget, where it really takes into account the timing of money, will be helpful in planning that out. If they don't feel good about this plan, if they want to reconsider options, we help them do that too. And And I'm sorry to say, throughout the tool, we tell them to talk to you guys a lot more. So maybe you think that's a good thing, hopefully. And then at the end, they can, again, save their link. They can get a printable version of all of this, give us some feedback. If they have another financial aid offer, they can loop back to the beginning. If they want to compare multiple schools, which of course we all want to encourage them to do that, kind of right now it's a little clumsy. They'd either have to have two different windows open so they can look at the schools side by side, or they can compare the PDFs, compare a printout. But we're looking for ways to bring in that easier side-by-side comparison. And that's kind of the end of the tool. I'm curious if anyone has questions. I'd love to field them. If you have suggestions, we'd love to hear them. And if you have any comments, just head over to a mic, and I'll do my best to answer your question.
Hi.
Hi.
Tim Lehman, Southern New Hampshire University. Just a question for you. As you listed some of the options and how to assist students to reduce their borrowing,
Yep.
if schools have some unique approaches that they've just introduced, such as income share agreements, how do we
Sure.
get that information surfaced to students that might be looking at our particular institution and getting that type of information surfaced?
Great, that's a great question. So this is a little different. I know the new shopping sheet really allows for a lot of customization. We haven't built that into this tool yet. We'd be open to doing something like that. And I think also we can maybe make it explicit where we mention like the tuition payment plan, like ask your school if they have an ISA. We can expand that list of things. So if you have verbiage that you want to see included in the tool, find a sheet or email us, and I'll make sure that we take that into consideration. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. I saw you had a blurb about capitalization, but in your loan projections and your payment projections,
Sure.
do you put that capitalization in there, or do you keep it like the $30,000 that they borrowed, not the $32,000 that will be their principal balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're still finalizing what our calculations are going to be, but I'll tell you some of the things that we're thinking about because we don't want to underestimate debt, right? So that's one thing that we're thinking about is assuming that their debt is going to capitalize and including that. Another thing that we're thinking about is making sure that as their federal loan borrowing limit increases each year that they're in school, making sure that's reflected as well. And so we're looking at doing some kind of proportionate calculation where if your initial financial aid offer is at, for instance, 80% of your federal loan limit, then we would continue to use 80% of the consecutive years, if that makes sense. But if you have suggestions about how you think that calculation should be made, please email me or fill it out in the feedback slip. We'd love to see it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question for you regarding off-campus housing expenses.
Sure.
And just for example, a student who's going to receive a refund.
Sure.
That they're going to need to manage the funding for the semester.
Yes.
It's a big challenge for us.
Yes.
Working with students and trying to do a lot of financial literacy sessions, showing them how to manage the money. Does your tool have any information for students with refunds, how to best manage them, plan for future semesters?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do acknowledge the difference between living on and off campus, that there's some different calculations that happen. And then I think the way that we're currently addressing that situation is with the budget worksheet. We did originally have an extra page and an extra screen in the tool that dealt with more of this timing stuff, but it didn't really seem to work for the students. It was kind of like information overload. So I think we're going to just stick to addressing that in the budget worksheet right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I may have missed this in your demo, so I apologize. But where you're looking at all the funding sources,
Sure.
as far as bridging gap and listing like other, is there a place where they can include employment income?
Yes, there's an off-campus job line, and they also have the ability to add a new line item and name it whatever they want.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Cool. Any other comments or questions or concerns?
Yeah, sorry, real quick. What was the URL for that site?
Oh, sure. So this site, actually, there's some basic information I should probably provide. We don't have a public version of this tool yet. It's going to be out this March. You're asking about the tool that I just showed you? Yeah, so that's going to be out this March. If you're interested in seeing an interactive beta version, that's something you can sign up for. So let me do the rest of my pitch now. So sign up if you want to see an interactive version of that, and we can set up a one-on-one video call for you to give me feedback as you go through the tool, or you can just look at it yourself and give me feedback at the end and just submit it through a form. The other thing we're looking for is schools to pilot with us. We've actually had a reasonable amount of interest from schools. We have the ability to set up a plugin so that you can feed your financial aid offer information directly into the tool and send it out as a pre-populated link to students. That's something we're already doing with some schools who use a stripped-down version of this tool. I know that can be a hard sell sometimes for your administration. So we're putting together some talking points for that. If you're interested in bringing that back to your administration, that's something else you can get in touch with me about is actually piloting the tool. So sign up if you want to see the tool, if you want to talk about piloting it, if you want to look at other resources that we have. Just make sure we have your email address or email us, and we'll get that everything to you. Cool. Well, if there aren't any other questions right now that you want addressed on the mic, we're going to stand up here and hand out, we have business cards, we can collect your feedback slips, we can answer more questions as they occur to you, if you have suggestions you want to make. And the suggestions can be for this tool, but can also be for publications you want to see, if you have other tools that you'd like us to think about building. We are here to serve you. We want to know what you need, what you want. So come up and let us know or reach out to us by email.